The morning I was arrested, I had just dropped my daughters at school. Twin girls, only 9 years old, backpacks bigger than their bodies. They thought I was going grocery shopping and coming right back. I kissed them both and told them I loved them. I never came back that day, and they waited for hours. That was February 22nd, 2021, and my whole life ended there. But to understand that morning, you need to understand everything before it. You need to understand how an 18-year-old girl got here. You need to understand what it means to love a man like him. I grew up in Canelas, a small mountain town in Durango, Mexico. My father was a poppy farmer who worked for the Sinaloa cartel. That is the world I was born into. It was normal to me. Nobody in Canelas talked about the cartel the way outsiders talk about it. It was not scary to us. It was just the way things worked. The cartel built roads, paid for schools, kept the town alive and breathing. You do not question the hand that feeds your entire community growing up. At 17, I entered the Coffee and Guava Festival beauty pageant locally. I had no idea that Joaquin Guzman Loera was watching from the crowd. El Chapo, the most wanted drug lord on the entire planet, watching me. He sent men to speak to my father the very next day. Not to me, to my father, because that is how it worked. My father came home and told me a very powerful man was interested. I was not scared. I was not confused. I already knew who he was. Every girl in those mountains knew who El Chapo was growing up. We got married on July 2nd, 2007, at a ranch in Canelas. I was 18 years old, and he was 49 years old that day. The age gap never bothered me the way it bothered everyone else outside. He was not what people imagined when they heard the name El Chapo. He was quiet, attentive, surprisingly gentle in moments nobody ever got to see. He remembered every small thing I mentioned and showed up with exactly it. He would ask about my day like a man with nothing to hide. He made me feel like the most protected person on the entire planet. And in many ways, I was, just not in the ways that mattered. We moved between houses constantly, never staying anywhere longer than a few weeks. I learned to pack a life into 2 bags and not feel anything. New city, new house, new name sometimes, same man sitting across the table. Within 1 year, I gave birth to our twin daughters, Emali and Maria. 2 perfect girls who deserved a life I was not sure I could give. But I pushed that thought down deep, and I focused on being present. I threw birthday parties, like we were a completely normal family living normally. I drove them to school and helped with homework and braided their hair. On the outside, we looked like any mother raising her children with love. On the inside, I knew federal agents on 3 continents were watching us. That is what you learn to do in this life. You push things down. If you are still watching, then hit subscribe to Unlived Life right now. These are the stories nobody else is brave enough to actually tell you. Hit subscribe and never miss a single story we drop every single week. The first time he was recaptured, I felt the walls close around me. February 2014, Mexican Marines raided the compound and took him without a single shot. I was not there, but I heard everything in real time through contacts. Your heart does not break in that moment. It goes completely cold and numb. Cold is how you survive. Emotion is a luxury you simply cannot afford here. I had 2 daughters to raise and a husband to keep connected with somehow. The visits were controlled, monitored, timed down to the exact last second. Guards watching every single movement, every word, every expression on your face, always. You sit across a table from the man you married and perform normality. You talk about the girls, about food, about nothing that actually matters at all. Because the real conversations happen in silence, in the spaces between every word. You learn to communicate without words. A look carries 1,000 sentences inside. He would glance at me a certain way, and I understood everything completely. That was our language, and nobody in that room could ever translate it. Then came the tunnel, and the world went absolutely insane, overnight, completely. July 11th, 2015, El Chapo vanished through a tunnel built inside his shower, a mile-long tunnel with a motorcycle on rails underneath the prison floor. The whole world was asking how. I already knew the answer to that. Money, patience, and people on the inside who valued their lives over loyalty. I played my role perfectly during that period, and I will leave it there. For 6 months, he was free, and for 6 months, I could breathe again. We spent time together in the mountains like none of it had ever happened. He played with his daughters. He cooked. He laughed. He was just a man. I let myself believe for a moment that maybe we would be okay forever. The Mexican government was humiliated, and the Americans were furious beyond any measure. When they finally caught him again in January 2016, the game changed forever. The United States wanted him extradited, and Mexico eventually had no choice remaining. January 19th, 2017. One day before Trump's inauguration, they flew him to New York. That flight was the moment I understood our old life was completely finished. The trial was a performance, and I had a front row seat always. Every single day I walked into that Brooklyn courtroom in my best clothes. Cameras everywhere, journalists, sketch artists capturing every single micro-expression on my face. I knew the whole world was watching me as much as watching him. I had one job in that room, and that job was to be unreadable. Smile too much, and you look cold. Cry, and you show weakness publicly. So I sat perfectly still, perfectly composed, perfectly devastating in a quiet way. Witnesses stood up there and described things I had tried hard not to know. Other women, other lives, other versions of the man I thought I understood. I kept my face still through every single word of every single testimony. He looked at me once across that room on one particular afternoon session. Just once, for maybe 3 full seconds, and then he looked away again. In those 3 seconds, he told me he was sorry without saying anything. In those 3 seconds, I told him I understood, without moving a single muscle. The jury found him guilty on all 10 counts on February 12th, 2019. Life in prison plus 30 years, with no possibility of ever getting out. I walked out of that courthouse and did not let a single tear fall. Subscribe to Unlived Life right now if this story is hitting different for you. There are people living these impossible lives, and we are the only ones telling it. One tap, that is all it takes. Subscribe, and come back every single week. After the trial, I thought the hardest part of my life was finally over. I was wrong. I am always wrong when I think the worst has passed. In 2021, the U.S. government started looking very carefully at everything around me specifically. They believed I had helped coordinate the 2015 prison escape from inside our relationship. They believed I had carried messages between El Chapo and Cartel leadership outside freely. They were not entirely wrong, but I'm not going to confirm anything here today. What I will tell you is that loyalty is its own kind of prison. You build the walls yourself, one small decision at a time, over many years. And by the time you see them clearly, you are already locked deep inside. February 22nd, 2021. I dropped my daughters at school like any normal Tuesday morning. Kissed them both, watched them walk through the school gates, drove away slowly. I remember the exact song playing on the radio as I drove away. I remember the exact color of the sky that morning, pale blue and cold. 3 blocks from the school, 4 federal vehicles surrounded my car without any warning. Doors open, badges out, hands where we can see them. Step out now. I did not run, I did not cry, I did not say a single word. I thought of my daughters waiting at school, and I kept my face completely still. I thought about who would pick them up and what they would be told. I thought about every choice that led me to that cold morning in that car. I was charged with drug trafficking conspiracy and sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. 3 years for loving a man the entire world had already decided was evil. I served my time, and I was released in 2023 on strict supervision terms. My daughters were 12 years old by then, and they had grown without me watching. They had learned to do their hair themselves and make their own lunches alone. They had learned to fall asleep without me in the next room being there. Children adapt because they have no other choice. That is the hardest truth of all. There is no amount of money or power that buys back those 3 years back. El Chapo sits in ADX Florence, a supermax where humans go to be forgotten. 23 hours a day in a cell the size of a small bathroom alone. No windows, no contact, no sense of time passing at all in there. The most feared man in the world reduced to concrete walls and fluorescent lighting. I think about the man at that festival watching a teenage girl on stage. I think about the ranch wedding and the twins and the quiet, gentle moments. I think about cooking dinner in safe houses while my daughters drew pictures nearby. I think about 3 seconds across a Brooklyn courtroom that said everything without words. And I think about 2 little girls waiting at school gates that never opened. This is what the life actually looks like from the inside of it all. Not the Netflix series, not the headlines, not the mythology they built around him. The reality is smaller and quieter and heavier than any show could ever capture. It is school runs and birthday cakes and prison visits and federal courtrooms. It is loving someone and losing yourself so slowly you never notice it happening. This is the weight of it, and I carried it longer than most people could. If this story moved you, then subscribe to Unlived Life before you close this video. We tell the stories from inside the lives nobody else gets close enough to tell. Every week a new perspective, a new life, a world you have never seen before. Hit subscribe right now. It takes 1 second, and it means everything to this channel. We will see you in the next story, and trust me, you do not want to miss it.